The broken ship, the lonely voice asterisk, the storm outside, raged like a wild beast. Tearing across the dead moon's surface, lightning flashed above the wreckage of the fallen alien cruiser. Its metal bones scattered across red dust and jagged rock. Most scavengers avoided this moon. They said it was cursed, a graveyard of ships, voices, and memories. But Jacob was not like other scavengers. He had no crew, no backup, and no fear of curses. All he had was his small ship, an old plasma rifle, and the habit of listening to his gut. And right now, his gut told him there was something alive in the wreck. His boots crunched on broken glass and scorched hull plates. The air was thick with smoke and silence, the kind of silence that pressed on the ears like something was waiting. Watching, he stepped carefully through the twisted halls of the crashed cruiser, scanning every shadow. Suddenly, his cum crackled in his ear. Biosign detected, his AI whispered. Weak life form, 20 meters ahead. Jacob raised his rifle and moved slowly. He passed a half-melted door, then ducked beneath a hanging beam. There, tucked between crushed storage crates, was something small. A soft whimper reached him, so faint it barely registered. He lowered his weapon and approached slowly. Then he saw her, a little alien girl, maybe 5 or 6 years old in human terms. She had lavender skin, long white lashes, and glowing pale eyes. Her arms were wrapped around a broken pendant. Glowing faintly, she didn't scream or run. She just looked up at him and whispered, "Can you be my dad?" Jacob froze. The air seemed to vanish from his lungs. He blinked, expecting her to say something else. But she didn't. The girl looked hungry, tired, and sick. Her clothes were burnt at the edges and her knees were bruised. Yet her voice was calm, not pleading, as if this question wasn't strange at all. Jacob knelt down and removed his helmet. "My name's Jacob," he said gently. "I'm not your dad, kid." She stared at him for a long time, her eyes shimmering in the darkness. Then she nodded and said, "But you came back, like he said." He didn't know what she meant. Maybe she was confused, or her mind was protecting her from trauma. But something in her eyes made it impossible to leave her behind. Jacob extended a hand. "Come on, let's get you out of here." She hesitated for a second, then reached out with her tiny fingers. The moment their hands touched, the pendant around her neck pulsed with light. A soft hum echoed through the wreckage. Jacob turned his head, senses alert, but no enemy came. He picked her up gently and carried her through the halls. As they stepped back into the storm, she clung to him tighter, not with panic, but like someone who had made a choice. He shielded her with his coat, pushing toward his waiting ship. Inside the cockpit, the warmth returned, and the lights hummed to life. He laid her on the medical bench and tried to scan her. The system struggled. Her biology was unlike anything in the database. But one thing was clear. She was alive. Barely, but alive. Jacob opened a water pack and handed it to her. She took tiny sips, blinking at him between gulps. He watched her, confused and unsettled. What was a child doing alone on a war cruiser? Why was there no one else? No bodies, no soldiers, and how did she survive? His ship AI broke the silence. Unknown species detected. No matches found in galactic records. Jacob sighed. "Yeah, I figured." The girl looked up at him again, still clutching her pendant. "Where's Mama?" she asked. Softly. Jacob didn't know how to answer. He didn't want to lie. But he couldn't tell her the truth either. He sat beside her and looked at the glowing pendant. "Is that from your mom?" he asked. She nodded. "She said it would help me find someone." "Someone?" Jacob asked. She looked at him, her voice barely a whisper. "A kind one." Jacob leaned back in the chair, his mind raced. He didn't sign up for this, but walking away now didn't feel right. She reached for his hand again. he let her hold it. Feeling her small fingers grip tightly, outside, the storm began to fade. Inside, something else began to grow. Jacob wasn't her father, but at that moment, something inside him quietly decided. Maybe he could try to be. What do you feed an alien child? The ship floated quietly in orbit above the wrecked moon. Its engines were cooling, systems stable. But the man inside wasn't calm. Jacob paced the corridor outside the medbay, holding a ration pack in one hand and a translator chip in the other. He kept glancing at the closed door like it might open on its own. Inside, the little alien girl was curled up on the bench. She had slept for hours since they escaped the wreck. The pendant around her neck pulsed softly with light, almost like it was breathing. Jacob couldn't shake the image of her whispering. "Can you be my dad?" He rubbed his face and sighed. "This is insane," he muttered. "I'm a junk runner, not a babysitter." Still, he walked back into the room and knelt beside her. The girl's eyes blinked open slowly, glowing pale. Gold under the soft lights. "You're safe now," Jacob said gently. Offering her water again, she took it with small fingers and drank. Then sniffed the ration bar he gave her and frowned. Jacob laughed under his breath. "Yeah, I get it. Tastes like dried socks." He tried again. Opening another pouch with nutrient gel, still no reaction. She only stared at the glowing pendant and then at him. "Does your pendant have food in it too?" he asked jokingly. The girl looked confused, then answered quietly, "It has Mama's voice." Jacob sat down, stunned. He activated his scanner and pointed to the crystal inside the pendant. Sure enough, the scanner picked up encrypted memory patterns. Buried deep inside were recorded thoughts, voices, images, feelings. "Can I try playing it?" Jacob asked. The girl nodded and held the pendant in both hands. It glowed brighter for a moment, then dimmed again. "Not yet," she said. "Mama said it only opens when I'm really not afraid." Jacob's stomach tightened. The girl had been through a war, a crash, and nearly died in a wreck. And yet she still didn't feel safe enough to hear her mother's last message. "What's your name?" he asked softly. "Rel," she replied, curling her knees up. "That's a pretty name," Jacob said, sitting beside her again. "I'm Jacob." She looked at him, then tilted her head. "Are you going to leave like the others?" Jacob didn't know what to say. He reached out and gently tapped her pendant. "Not yet, Rel. Not if you need me," the AI interrupted with a calm tone. "Captain, unknown fleet has entered long-range sensors. Scanning patterns suggest bounty-class ships." Jacob swore under his breath. Of course, someone was tracking her. He stood and walked to the cockpit. The screen lit up with a map of nearby space. And sure enough, 2 ships approaching at high speed. Time to intercept, 30 minutes. The AI added. Jacob glanced back at Rel, who was watching quietly from the med bay door. "Looks like we've got company," he said, forcing a smile. She didn't smile back. Instead, she walked over to the pilot's chair and looked at the flashing dots on the screen. "They're here for me," she whispered. "Why?" Jacob asked, trying to keep his voice calm. "They said I was important," Rel replied, her voice trembling. Like a key, Jacob's mind raced. What kind of child had bounty hunters chasing her through space? He thought for a second, then turned back to the console. "AI, prepare emergency jump. Destination," it asked. "Anywhere green." Jacob said, "Somewhere with trees and no signals." Rel pulled at his sleeve. "Will there be birds?" Jacob blinked, surprised. "Yes," he said. "Birds, rivers, clouds too." "Then I want to go," she whispered, holding tighter to his arm. The engines hummed as the ship prepared for the jump. Jacob secured Rel in the seat next to his, adjusting the safety belts to fit her small frame. She didn't complain, didn't cry, just watched him with wide, glowing eyes. He turned to her and said, "Hold on, kid. This ride might shake your tiny horns off." "I don't have horns," she said seriously. Jacob grinned. "Then let's keep it that way." The stars outside stretched and blurred as the ship entered. Warp. The bounty hunters were left behind, at least for now. Jacob leaned back and stared at the stars passing by. Rel leaned into him, resting her head against his side. "I like this ship," she said softly. Jacob swallowed. "Yeah, me too," he said, knowing full well that this quiet wouldn't last. Whatever Rel was, whoever was after her, it wasn't over. But in that moment, as the stars drifted and her breathing slowed, Jacob made a quiet promise. He would protect her, feed her, teach her, until the galaxy stopped chasing her, or until his last breath. She didn't call him Dad again that day. She didn't have to. Trouble follows the girl. The green planet below looked peaceful from space. Covered in jungles and wrapped in swirling clouds, it was the perfect place to hide. No satellite signals, no nearby stations, no patrol routes, just untouched land, old ruins, and silence. Jacob brought the ship down gently through the trees. Branches scraped along the hull as the landing gears extended. Inside, Rel sat quietly, her glowing eyes fixed on the window. "This place smells like stories," she said. Jacob chuckled as he powered down the ship. "I hope they're the quiet kind." They stepped into the humid air. The forest buzzed with life-strange insects, soft calls of animals. Rel looked around with wonder, spinning slowly and holding her pendant close to her chest. "Do birds here talk?" she asked. "Probably argue about worms." Jacob replied, smiling as he unpacked supplies. They set up a small camp near a crystal-clear stream. Rel splashed her feet in the water while Jacob worked on the ship's hull. The jungle seemed to welcome them. For now, later that evening, they sat around a portable fire. Jacob was fixing her pendant's outer frame, careful not to damage the crystal. "You said your mom told you to find someone kind," he said softly. Rel nodded without looking up. "She said kindness shines, even in the dark." Jacob paused for a moment, staring into the fire. "That's a good mother." "Yes," Rel whispered. "She said even if I forget her face, I must never forget her words." Suddenly, the AI broke the quiet. "Captain, proximity alert. Unregistered vessel detected in orbit." Jacob stood instantly, eyes sharp. "Already," he muttered, rushing to the scanner console. The screen showed a sleek black ship circling above. No ID tags, no beacon, but the heat signature was familiar. "Bounty class," he said, voice tight. Rel came running, barefoot in the grass. "They found me again," she said, shaking. Jacob knelt and grabbed her shoulders. "Listen to me. You did nothing wrong. Do you understand? But they'll take me," she said. "They always try." "Not this time," Jacob promised. He opened a hidden compartment beneath the ship's floor. Revealing old tech and weapon crates, Rel stared at the strange gear, wide-eyed. "What's that?" she asked. "Tricks," Jacob said, pulling out camo nets, signal jammers, and a small drone launcher. He handed her a small communicator. "You hide under the ridge, behind the tree roots we saw earlier. Don't come out unless I call you." Rel hesitated, then grabbed his shirt and pulled him close. "If something happens," she began, "nothing will," he said firmly. "I'll come back, just like before." Within minutes, the sky roared as the bounty ship descended. Its hull was smooth and dark, wings folding like blades as it landed in a clearing across the stream. Jacob watched from the shadows, rifle ready, traps in place. 3 armored figures stepped out, their visors glowing red, heat trail confirmed. One of them said, "Scanning. The Grasschild asset is within 50 meters." Jacob triggered the first trap. A flash mine burst under their feet, sending one crashing back. He opened fire, hitting the second in the shoulder before retreating behind cover. The soldiers weren't amateurs. They spread out fast, communicating silently. Jacob kept them distracted, weaving between trees, planting more surprises. His heart pounded. He had to keep them away from Rel. Suddenly, one of the hunters activated a pulse sensor. It picked up Rel's faint heartbeat beneath the ridge. The third soldier turned and ran toward her hiding place. Jacob saw it happen and shouted, "No," as he charged after him. But Rel didn't wait. She stepped out, her pendant glowing bright. The soldier froze as his visor cracked with a sharp pulse. A wave of energy burst from the girl, rippling through the air like a shockwave. All three soldiers dropped to their knees, clutching their heads. Jacob reached her side just in time to catch her before she fell. Her body trembled, eyes wide with fear and glowing to bright. "I didn't mean to," she whispered. "It just happened." Jacob lifted her in his arms. "You saved us," he said, voice full of awe. "But it hurt," she cried softly. "It always hurts when I do it." He carried her back to the ship, heart heavy. He realized now that she wasn't just rare, she was powerful. Maybe even dangerous to the wrong hands. But to him, she was still a little girl who wanted to be safe. The bounty hunters lay unconscious in the grass. Their ship's engines remained off. Their threat paused. Jacob sealed his ship tight and activated a cloaking field. They couldn't stay here much longer. He laid Rel in her bed, brushing her hair from her forehead. She opened her eyes and whispered. "You're still here?" "Always," Jacob replied. She reached for his hand. Again, and even though she was scared, she smiled. The kind of smile that told him she still believed he would protect her, even when the galaxy didn't. And that was all the reason he needed to keep going. The forgotten planet, the stars above, stretched like silver rivers across the dark sky. Jacob's ship drifted near a dying sun, silent and unseen. He leaned over the console, scanning an old star map from before the war. He needed somewhere no one looked anymore, somewhere forgotten. Then he found it. A planet marked only as X97, once used for refugee processing long ago, now listed as inactive. Off-grid and outside all trade routes. No beacons, no life signals. "No patrols AI," he said, pointing at the coordinates. "Take us there. Stealth mode all the way. Course locked," the voice replied. Arrival in 4 hours. Jacob turned toward the med bay, where Rel lay sleeping under a soft thermal sheet. Her breathing was slow, her energy drained. After the psychic blast, he had given her everything he could: food, rest, warmth, but he couldn't give her peace. Not while she kept waking in fear. Not while the pendant kept glowing in her sleep. Jacob sat beside her and whispered, "You don't have to be a weapon, kid. You're just a little girl." When the ship entered orbit around X97, the planet below looked like it had been. Forgotten by time, clouds rolled over empty plains, and old structures were half buried in moss. Jacob landed near an old station with crumbling towers and rusted doors. He scanned for life. Nothing, just wind and silence. "Looks like we found a ghost town," he muttered. Rel stood beside him in her new coat. "One size too big. I like it here," she said. "It feels quiet, but not lonely." Together, they explored the station. Inside, old machines lay dormant. Vines growing over consoles, the emergency lights still flickered. When Jacob restored partial power, he found a working water system, old bunk rooms, and a forgotten garden on the roof. They moved in, cleaning what they could. Jacob rebuilt a safe room for Rel, padded with blankets and glow sticks. She filled it with drawings of birds, trees, and stars. The pendant hung near her bed, still pulsing softly. One night, Jacob cooked something close to soup. Rel dipped her spoon in and asked, "What was your daughter like?" Jacob's hand froze for a moment. He looked at the fire, then back at her. "She was small, like you," he said, voice low. "Braver than me. What happened to her?" There was a quake. "On Mars," he said slowly. "She didn't make it. Rel lowered her eyes. I'm sorry. Jacob smiled sadly. Me too. That night, Rel watched the stars from the rooftop. She held her pendant and whispered to the wind, I wish I could give him a new daughter. She didn't know Jacob had followed her quietly. He stood behind the rooftop door, hearing her words, and something in his chest ached. Not pain, not regret, but something new. Something like hope. In the days that followed, they lived. Like shadows, Jacob taught Rel how to fix old machines and how to make traps, just in case. She taught him the meaning of some strange alien symbols carved into the walls. They began to understand each other without needing to speak much. One day, Jacob found a room in the station marked Records. Inside, a dusty terminal blinked awake. He searched the logs and found something strange. Rel's species was listed not as soldiers or royalty, but as keepers. Carriers of psychic memory meant to protect ancient knowledge. She wasn't. A weapon, she was a living library. He ran back to her and said, Rel, you're not just rare. You're important to history. She tilted her head. Is that good? It's dangerous. He replied, but also powerful. If people knew, they wouldn't want to protect you. They'd want to use you. She didn't speak for a while. Then she asked, Do you want to use me? Jacob looked at her firmly. No, Rel. I just want to keep you safe. She smiled and took his hand. That's what a dad would say. That evening, as rain fell gently on the roof, the pendant glowed brighter than ever. It pulsed 3 times, then projected a soft image in the air. Jacob and Rel both gasped. A hologram of a tall woman with lavender skin appeared. Rel stepped forward, whispering, Mama. The hologram began to speak. If you're hearing this, my little one, it means you found someone kind. I am gone, but you are not alone. Let your light grow where it is safe, and trust the hand that holds yours. Rel's eyes filled with tears as the image faded. She turned to Jacob and asked, Do you think I'm safe now? Jacob pulled her close and whispered, I'll make sure of it. And for the first time, Rel slept without fear, in a forgotten place, guarded by a man who once had nothing left to give, and now had everything to protect. They came for the girl. The jungle had gone too quiet. Birds stopped calling. The wind paused. Even the insects held their breath. Jacob stood outside the old station, hands on his rifle, eyes locked on the tree line. He didn't like silence like this. It meant something was watching. Behind him, Rel played with a broken data tablet in the old garden. She had learned to smile again. Her laugh was soft and strange, like wind chimes. But Jacob's chest felt heavy. The peace they found on X-97 was too perfect. Too calm. Then the first sound came, a faint hum in the sky. It wasn't loud, but it vibrated in his bones. Jacob spun and ran toward the ship. He activated the perimeter scanner, and his blood went cold. 3 ships, low orbit, camo stealth engaged. No signals, no beacons, just black shadows against the clouds. AI, he snapped. Send jamming pulses. Activate the decoy flares. The ship complied. But Jacob already knew they were too late. The forest exploded as drop pods slammed into the ground. Metal claws unfolded, and soldiers in silver armor marched out. This wasn't bounty hunters. This was something bigger. Federation Elite Retrieval Unit detected, the AI whispered. Jacob cursed under his breath. Rel was too important now. They weren't just capturing her. They were here to erase every witness too. Jacob grabbed Rel's arm and pulled her close. We're leaving, he said, but I was drawing. She protested, holding a picture of a bird. He looked into her innocent eyes and whispered, They found us. Rel didn't cry. She didn't panic. She simply nodded and held his hand tighter. Together, they rushed through the overgrown hallway to the ship. As they reached the loading ramp, plasma fire lit up the treetops. Explosions rocked the ground, sending ash and leaves into the air. Jacob turned and saw them, soldiers in perfect formation, faces hidden behind emotionless helmets. "Protect the asset," one of them shouted. "Use force if necessary." The ship's shields activated. Taking the first few blasts, Jacob fired back with precision. Buying time, he yelled, "Get inside." "Lock the door." Rel hesitated, her eyes glowing brighter than before. "Rel," he shouted, "please." But she stood still, pendant pulsing like a heartbeat. Then she whispered, "I don't want to run anymore." The air shifted. The soldiers froze mid-step, as if gravity itself had paused. Rel lifted her hand, and the pendant burst with light, a wave of pure force, blasted outward, sending armored soldiers flying like ragdolls. The sky above rippled, and for a moment, every screen on the Federation ships glitched. Jacob covered his eyes as the jungle lit up with gold and white. Then silence returned. Rel collapsed into his arms. Her energy drained again. He picked her up gently, heart pounding. She had done something incredible, something terrifying. And now the galaxy would never stop chasing her, not just because of who she was, but because of what she could do. Jacob carried her into the ship, laying her on the bed. Her breathing was shallow, her skin pale. He gripped her hand and whispered, "You did good, kid." Outside, smoke rose from the ruins of the attack. The enemy was broken, for now. But reinforcements would come. They always did. The eye spoke again. Multiple long-range signals detected. More ships inbound. Jacob looked out the window and then down at Rel. "I won't let them take you." He rushed to the pilot's seat and prepared the ship for takeoff. The engines whirred, the shields reset, and the stealth drive warmed up. Rel stirred and whispered, "I hurt them again." Jacob turned to her. "They came to take you, Rel. You protected yourself." "But I don't like hurting," she said, tears forming in her eyes. He knelt beside her and held her hand. "I'll find a way to keep you safe without fighting. I promise." She nodded slowly, curling under the blanket. Jacob returned to the controls, watching the countdown tick to 0. The ship lifted off, flames shooting beneath its thrusters. The planet below shrank behind them. A broken dream left behind as they entered hyperspace. Rel opened her eyes again. "Where are we going now?" Jacob looked at her and smiled. "Somewhere quiet, but if they keep chasing, then I'll keep running," he said. "With you." Her hand slipped into his again, small and trembling, but she didn't let go, and neither did he. A new kind of father. The stars beyond the window shimmered like ice. Jacob sat in silence, one hand on the ship's controls, the other wrapped around a steaming cup. Rel lay sleeping in the corner bunk, curled under a blanket stitched with patches from old jackets. The hum of the engine was the only sound, calm and steady. After the battle on X-97, Jacob changed the ship's name in the system registry. He called it Haven. It wasn't just a ship anymore. It was their home. The place where she smiled. The place where he started to feel like a person again. But peace was thin. Jacob knew the galaxy hadn't stopped looking for her. He spent nights checking secure channels, listening to chatter, always ready to run again. One evening, Rel sat across from him at the dining console, legs swinging off the chair. "Why?" "Did you help me?" she asked, without warning. Jacob looked up from his meal, blinking at the question. "You were just a scared kid," he answered. "There are lots of scared kids," she said, tilting her head. "Not everyone gets saved." He took a deep breath. "I had a daughter once," he said quietly. "She died. And when I saw you, something inside me woke up. It told me not to walk away again." Rel didn't speak right away. Then she reached across the table and touched his hand. "Maybe she sent me." Jacob smiled at that. Maybe she did, later. They found an abandoned orbital station floating near a dead planet. Its lights flickered weakly, but the outer shell was intact. Jacob docked carefully. Stepping out with Rel close behind, dust floated through the halls like mist. They moved through the silent corridors, looking for anything useful. Most rooms were stripped, but in one chamber, they found old identity machines, used once to give names and homes to refugees who had none. Jacob looked at the cracked screen and made a decision. He entered his name, his ID code, and then hers. He hesitated when the system asked for the relationship. Then he typed Father Rel, stood on her toes and peeked at the screen. "You're really doing it?" she whispered. Jacob nodded. No more running without reason. The machine hummed and printed 2 thin cards. They weren't real by galactic standards, but they'd pass in the outer systems. He handed one to her. "You're officially my daughter now." She took it slowly, staring at the name, Rel Harper. She smiled so wide, Jacob thought his heart might burst. "Do daughters get to ask for candy now?" she said seriously. He laughed for the first time in weeks. "Depends on the planet." Back aboard Haven, the AI signaled a private message in the ship's cache. Jacob opened it and froze. It was from a station commander, warning of increased search orders for a rogue child with psychic abilities. The bounty was doubled. He deleted the message, then locked down all external systems. No signals, no outgoing codes. They were shadows again that night. Jacob sat beside Rel's bed. She was drawing birds again, this time with stars in their wings. He watched her and asked, "Do you remember your parents?" Rel nodded slowly. "They were always moving." She said, "People wanted to study me, so we had to hide." Jacob clenched his jaw. "And now?" "I've made you do the same." "No," she said firmly. "You gave me more than hiding." He looked at her. Surprised, "You gave me choices," she said. "They only gave me rules." That struck deep. He didn't see her as a tool, or a secret, or a weapon. She was just Rel, a kid who liked birds and stars and terrible soup. A kid who called him Dad. The ship drifted onward, far from trade lanes, deep into the quiet dark. Jacob stared out the window. He thought of Mars, of the daughter he had lost, and how the universe had handed him another chance he didn't deserve. He wouldn't waste it, even if it meant fighting every fleet in the galaxy. Even if it meant becoming something more than a scavenger, he would become what Rel believed. He already was a father worth keeping. The message that changed everything, the stars outside the viewport, drifted slowly. Jacob sat beside the navigation console, one hand resting near the old pendant that now hung on the wall. Rel had left it there days ago, saying she didn't need to wear it anymore. "I already found what I was looking for," she had said with a smile. She sat now near the bunk, legs crossed, working on a small wooden carving he had given her. The girl had changed, not just in strength, but in light. Her laughter came easier, her eyes brighter, her sleep peaceful. But Jacob knew the galaxy hadn't forgotten her. Even in the quiet, something still lingered. Something in the pendant pulsed as if waiting for the right moment. Waiting to speak again. That moment came without warning. The pendant glowed softly and floated into the air. Jacob stood quickly, reaching for it. But the glow warmed rather than burned. Rel's eyes widened, and she whispered, "She's back." The projection formed slowly, light weaving itself into the shape of a tall woman. Her skin lavender like Rel's, her eyes golden and kind. The hologram moved gently, as if aware it was no longer speaking into a war zone. Then it began to speak. "My daughter, if you are hearing this, then the worst has passed. You survived. And someone good stands beside you. I cannot thank them, but I can speak to them now." Jacob froze as the message shifted. The woman now faced him, "To the one who protected my child." She said, "Thank you," from a mother who knew she would not live to see this moment. Rel stepped beside Jacob, gripping his hand tightly. The message continued. "She is more than memory." The voice said, "She is a bridge, a hope, and her gift must never be used by force." The light flickered slightly, then grew steady again. If you stayed by her side even now, then you are the one she chose, not by blood, not by duty, but by something stronger, love. Jacob felt his throat tighten. He looked at Rel, who was smiling, tears running down her cheeks. She chose you, the voice repeated. Please, be her father, not just her protector. The hologram dimmed slowly. Then the final words came, quiet but unshakable. Tell her I loved her, and that her new family has my blessing. Then it vanished. Silence fell in the cabin. The pendant floated gently back to the wall and dimmed. Jacob turned to Rel, unsure what to say. She looked up at him, voice trembling. She knew you. She trusted you, even without meeting you. Jacob dropped to one knee and pulled her into his arms. I'm not perfect, he whispered, but I promise you, I'm staying. She hugged him tightly, her forehead resting on his chest. You already are my dad, she said. I just wanted to hear you say it. They stayed like that for a long time. No alarms, no threats, just the sound of the ship and two hearts. Later, they made warm food and shared stories about Earth and Rel's old home. They laughed until their sides hurt before sleeping. Rel placed the pendant in a box and closed it gently. That part of me is complete, she said. Jacob tucked her into bed, brushing her hair back. Sleep, daughter, he said softly. The next morning, the ship drifted toward a nebula, beautiful, glowing, alive. They weren't running anymore. They were moving forward as a family, and somewhere beyond the stars. Maybe someone was smiling because one little girl asked a question, and one broken man had the courage to answer it with a promise that would never be broken.